Ahead of the U.S. presidential election, those who stand in Hillary Clinton's way often find themselves branded as Russia's agents by her campaign and her supporters. The trend has become so pervasive that to many, it is starting to reek of Cold War McCarthyism, when many Americans were unfairly accused of disloyalty and pro-communist activity. Now, replace communist Soviet Union with today's Russia, and the smear campaign becomes eerily similar.
If a person defends the activities of communist nations while consistently attacking the domestic and foreign policy of the United States, she may be a communist.
Enter Donald Trump. He's vocal in his criticism of U.S. domestic and foreign policy. He wants good relations with Moscow, and he says NATO should not be anti-Russian. That's enough for the Clinton campaign to insinuate that Mr. Trump is a traitor. And why bother with evidence?
Trump always seems to upend American foreign policy tradition in a way that benefits Vladimir Putin.
WikiLeaks released thousands of emails showing that the Democratic Party used its resources, including media connections, to undermine Bernie Sanders in favor of Hillary Clinton. The Clinton campaign, again, in the absence of any evidence, cast WikiLeaks as the Kremlin's tool.
Russian intelligence services, which are part of the Russian government, which is under the firm control of Vladimir Putin, hacked into the DNC, and we know that they arranged for a lot of those emails to be released.
Because WikiLeaks does not reveal its sources, you can accuse it of being anyone's tool.
There are other communists who don't show their real faces, who work more silently.
The media, which appeared to favor Hillary Clinton, spent a lot more time discussing the Clinton campaign pitched theory that Russia could be behind the leaks than they did covering what was in the leaks. Green Party nominee Jill Stein began to attract some of Bernie Sanders' supporters, and before long was cast by the Clinton camp as another Kremlin agent. Their evidence? She appeared here on RT on numerous occasions, and she was invited to RT's anniversary in Moscow, where the Russian president was also a guest. If this was 1950s America, Jill Stein would probably be one of Senator Joseph McCarthy's victims.
If a person supports organizations which reflect communist teachings, or organizations labeled communist by the Department of Justice, she may be a communist.
So what will Joe McCarthy say about today's political climate? We asked Philip Giraldi, who spent decades of his career at the CIA fighting communism.
Would probably be in admiration of Hillary Clinton. It's comparable strategies in terms of what did the United States and the Soviet Union do to each other during the Cold War? Well, they did the same thing we're seeing right now, which is essentially to create what we would call now false narratives, to create stories that people will be inclined to believe, but essentially are not true. And so we see a lot of that happening. You see it happening when they are accusing Russia of interfering in our politics, when they're accusing of Donald Trump of being and Jill Stein of being too friendly to Russian leaders and to the Russian state. It's again, it's a false narrative.
History was not kind to Senator Joe McCarthy, whose witch hunt destroyed many people's careers.
The Senate committee considering charges against Senator McCarthy ends almost a month's proceedings in Washington, finding their fellow senator acted in a manner they call contemptuous and reprehensible.
The words that did remain in history were those of Counsel Joseph Welch, addressed to Senator McCarthy.
Look, you have done enough. Have you no sense of decency, sir, at long last?
The same words many would like to say today to those who engage in the kind of smear campaign where Secretary Clinton's opponents and journalists who expose her flaws are cast as Kremlin agents. In Washington, I'm Ganesh Shakyan, RT.